Everybody, I'm Joran Barre from the activity team at Alfresco, and in this movie today I'm going to show you one of the cool things we've been working on in the past few weeks. Basically, there's an API and tooling around that API to allow you to very easily and very simply create workflows on the flow at runtime without having to reboot any Alfresco, without having to know any technicalities like Java, BPMN, or XML even, and just get going with some clicks and drag and drops. Okay. To prove you I've done nothing up front of this, let me just show you that all the workflows currently deployed on Alfresco are the default workflows. So I've got nothing up my sleeves. And the tool I'm going to use to exercise the API today is an iPad app, which I wrote quickly. It's a prototype app. This is not something we've planned in Alfresco. And the case which I'm going to use is like in a hospital. Now, the point of this demo is not to show you something realistic, like a realistic business process for a hospital, but just to show you the power of this tool, how quickly you can create workflows on the fly. So let's get going. The first step is we're going to open a patient case. And we can now decide on who will do that. And for this, I will just assign it to the person who started the workflow. Now this person will also see a form when he opens this task. So let's add some properties to that form. For example, the name of the patient, that's mandatory. The social security number, which is also mandatory. And the acceptance date. This is optional. Here we go. This is the first step. Second step is we're going to make a diagnose. And the diagnose is being done by one of our famous doctors. So we're going to assign it to our doctor, Gregory House. And suppose that he just now has to fill in for this workflow a disease, and that's it. There we go, 2 steps, very simple, not a realistic process, but we've created it like in 1 minute. Let's launch it to Alfresco. Here we go. And in the backend, now all the things like the Alfresco content model, the share form config, that's that one here, the BPMN 2.0 process, that one here, that's all generated for you. You don't have to write anything of that, and it's all put in the right places for you. Now let's get to Alfresco, start the workflow, and now our process is in the list. This is a generic start form. Now just let's fill in something like the curious case of Benjamin Button. Start the workflow. As you might remember, the first step was assigned to the person who started this workflow, which is I was logged in as the administrator. So I can now fill in this task. Name was mandatory, as you can see. Benjamin Button. Just some social security number. And once I start filling in this, you can see that the button below is grayed out, is enabled and disabled on the fly. Acceptance date. Here we go. The second task, after the first one, was done by our doctor. So let's log in. Here we go. You can see here in Dashlet he has to make a diagnose. Now suppose that he and his team, they discussed it, they found a disease, and they found out it's lupus. Here we go. That's it. First process done. Again, the point was not to show you a real business process. The point was to show you how quickly it was to create this business process on the fly. Now let's enhance it a bit. Open it up again. Let's add 2 more tasks. For example, one of the things we need to do is take MRI. And that's going to be done by one of our doctors. So we assign it to the group. Anybody can do this. Anybody in the diagnostic medicine staff group. We need to upload the MRI scan. Here we go, that's mandatory. And we need to take a biopsy, which is also done by one of these guys from the medicine staff. And these are the lab results, which are going to be uploaded, and they are required. Okay. Now let's move these 2 to the second step, this one to the third step. Let's swipe those to the right, and by swiping those to the right, we make them parallel. So after the first user task, here the open patient case, we're going to have 2 user tasks in parallel at the same time. Then at the last step, the diagnose, we're going to add the documents, all the documents which are being scanned by the previous doctors, so he can take a look at it, and just create one for the fun of it to send the bill. And let's assign that to one person in particular, the boss of the hospital. Here we go. And he just has to fill out an amount, which is required. Here we go. Launch it again. I wasn't counting, but this was just like 1 minute, 1 minute and a half to update the process from something very simple to something rather complex already. So let me show you what's happening now. Let's log out and log in as the admin. The admin is like a person in the reception area and registering patients. Start the workflow, diagnose patients. For example, our patient has a disease which makes funny jokes and comments all the time. Here we go. Again, first step, initiator. Let's fill in. So suppose this is my dear colleague Eric at Alfresco. Just fill in the social security number. And if you remember correctly now, there are now 2 tasks in parallel going on after the first step. So log in as one of these doctors, and you can see that we now have 2 tasks in parallel. So suppose that he's now going to do the MRI. You can see we have to upload the MRI. And suppose that we now have an MRI machine which is attached to Alfresco and uploads all the scans to Alfresco. Here we go. So this is just it's just a picture basically, just for demo purposes of course. This is just a picture of an MRI. And that's it. Task done. Suppose that he goes home and some other doctor comes by. And she now does the second thing, was doing the biopsy. Just suppose that we took the biopsy, we send it to the lab, we get the lab results back. Here we go. Task done. And we log in as our master doctor now, as house. Here we go. You have to diagnose now the patient. So the doctor can now look at these documents which are being uploaded by his fellows. And suppose that this disease which he has is Witzelsucht, which is apparently a real disease. It's a disease, a brain defect which makes you do funny things. So you think you're funny, but you're not actually. Here we go. Okay, so and now I can log in as foreman and see the send a bill, but that's, I think you got the point. The point of this demo is that you can easily and quickly, without any technical knowledge, can create workflows on the fly. One thing I just wanted to show you is that all the stuff that's being generated in the backend can all just be downloaded from Alfresco. For example, the business process. As you can see here, the business process can just be downloaded and used as a developer, so you're not tied in this tool. That's very important. So as a developer, you can just download this document, import it into your Eclipse or whatever environment you're working in, and start working as you used to do. And the same is for the form config and the task models. Now the task model is living in a different place. This is a task model. This is just a regular Alfresco task model being generated by the tool for you. And that was basically it. So thanks for watching.